Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar on cybersecurity, solving the new challenges of a digital world. My name is Ashwani Mishra and I am the editor at Economic Times CIO. Thank you all for your time and participation, and I hope this session provides some key learnings around cybersecurity to all of you. The problem for security professionals is a complex one. Update systems and processes to suit the new threat landscape while trying to keep up with threat of specialized and well-resourced cybercrime. Organizations must be prepared for the unpredictable so they have the resilience to withstand unforeseen high-impact events. But how does security actually need to adapt to meet the challenges the situation brings in? To find out more, I invite Dr. Sivasubramanian, Global Head of Security for Bharti Airtel, an IT professional of senior management experience. Dr. Shiva is a transformation champion. In his earlier stint at Singtel Optus as CISO, he successfully transformed a back-office security function into a strategic business enabler and a channel for enhancing customer experience. Dr. Shiva, I hand it over to you.
Good afternoon. I am Sivasubramanian. It's a pleasure talking to all of you on cybersecurity. See, today's topic we will cover In today's topic, we will be covering the following areas. One, let's talk what cybersecurity is, and let's understand why it is a top priority for all the enterprises. Then, what do you do for cybersecurity protection? One of them is going to be how to predict a cyber threat. Then what do you do with people and process? That's another vector for your cyber threats. Then what are the proactive measures you're supposed to take, and how you will use knowledge as a tool to combat cyber risks. Then we talk about very briefly about how telecoms and ISPs can play a role in cybersecurity. What are the market offerings for various cybersecurity tools and services? And then I leave the place open for question and answer. Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Is what is a cyber risk or a cybersecurity? It's an interrelated risk that stems from multiple technologies or factors. Okay, the cybersecurity is not limited to just computer-centric risks. It is more a manifestation of a social, economic, personal, and national level risks. Cyber is a channel for which it can have an impact on your society by propagating lots of information, or economics to disable a country's services or airlines or telecom industry or something. Personally, go for a cyber ransom with you, and nationally defame the country and defame the country's capability in the eyes of the thing. So cybersecurity is just not related to the computer alone. It is a much bigger phenomenon for which computer is a channel. So if you look if you take a step back, cyber and traditional security risks are highly interrelated. See, cyber security or cyber capabilities serve as a multiplier for traditional risks. So with that as the base, let's go to the next one. So let us understand what initiates or what are the sources of cyber risks. So number one, you can think of internal theft. That is people who want to steal your data or your services or a formula, whatever it is. Malwares, you must be knowing about virus, worms, and etc. Fraud, phishing. And phishing is, for people who have not been familiar with this, it's an exercise where somebody masquerades as a genuine business enterprise, and gullible customers go over there and provide all their details. For example, somebody will masquerade as a bank and you will go provide all your details on it, trying to take money, and it will say, sorry, the system is not working. And a few minutes later, the guy who has taken all your details will be going to the real bank and taking your money off. This is called a phishing scam. And then hackers, you must all be aware of. Then DDoS, about which we'll be talking a little bit more in this presentation, which is distributed denial of service. Denial of service, as it means, the attackers are attacking a company or a nation's capability so that any services provided from that platform, be it a bank or a telephone company or any social services organization, is completely taken off air purely by swamping it with multitude of sessions on top of it, like too many people hitting the same services simultaneously. They don't do it from one computer, they do it from thousands of computers, and that's why it is called as a distributed denial of service. So online money laundering has become a big business nowadays, and so they also use cybersecurity as a conduit, or they pose a new level of cyber risk for us, so that using that cyberspace, they use it as a conduit for money laundering. Identity theft is another thing, and then therefore we have internal threats. So these are the broad areas of cyber risks. Going to the next slide. Okay, now let's compare it between the traditional computer security or information security and cyber security. In a traditional sense, let's see how the risk probabilities and the impact of a given risk are distributed. On the x-axis, you have here is an impact. The impact a risk can pose on a corporation, and the y-axis we have got probability of the risk. A typical risk distribution pattern will be of this nature, and the one which we have shaded is where computer security traditionally takes care of, because the risks beyond those on the right-hand side, though they have a very high impact on the company, their probabilities are very low. Therefore, it is not worth your while in trying to protect against them, and you just ignore them because it may never eventuate. On the other hand, the high probability, medium impact things you protect because they are likely to affect you in one way or the other. Now, in the area of cyber era, this risk, what you're seeing on the right-hand side, is basically pushed up. The probability of the risk has increased. Okay, and therefore that becomes an area for us to concentrate on. That area is what we call as cybersecurity. From this, you might know that both computer security and cyber security are very identical with reference to the techniques and tools which you will be using to protect each other. So what you know already as computer security or information security or IT security can be seamlessly extended to provide cyber security capabilities as well. Now, in the next slide, let us see how these risks have been raised. So we said that the risk probability of the risks are risen from the lower level to the higher level. How did it happen? See, number one is commoditized IT. IT is no longer an esoteric science. You can go order it online, get anything. Cloud has become very pervasive. Infrastructure, platform, software, anything as service you are getting in the cloud. Social media is where your privacy is completely eroded willingly by yourself. Then mobile is a platform of choice. Everybody wants to use your computer or your mobile phone like this for anything and everything. Whether it is a banking activity or whether you are going to be approving a very serious financial transaction of your corporation, you simply use your mobile phone because that's the way we do it. The millennia impact. The children born out of after 1990, they are called as millennial children because these children are internet natives. For them, the risk what you and I perceive is not what they feel, and they feel that they must be always connected, and that mindset imposes a certain level of risk. That's why the risk probability increases. Then, as corporations, we also store big data, which is essentially storing data, historic data, and data about anything and everything relating to your product, services, and your competitors are there. So it becomes a place which attracts criminals to come and seek those data. Then personalized data is a subset of the big data where, in order to do a targeted marketing, we try to find for a given customer what are all his preferences, where does he live, what does he do, what are his spare time, what are his hobbies, almost everything about the person, including several personal information are collected and handled for marketing. So that becomes another important asset which these criminals would like to get a hand on. Therefore, these are all the things that collectively increase the probability of the risk. Now, let us say, okay, we have spoken about what is cybersecurity, what is how the risks are distributed with reference to cybersecurity. Now let us understand why this should be a top priority for corporations. If you look at this slide, the first thing is, now it is anything that you use in your corporation is always software defined. Your servers are no longer physical devices, virtualized servers. Your switches, your routers, they're all virtualized. Everything is through a software configuration. It's a software definition. A small change in any one of them, deliberately or accidentally, is going to have a serious consequences. If anybody needs to infiltrate one layer of the software and then change a few settings, then your company is exposed. Second, Internet of Things. Almost everything, every device, every equipment you have is connected to Internet. It's coming, if not fully, it will happen in the next few years. Your car is also an Internet-enabled device. So just think of it, what it could happen. Will somebody be able to hack into your car and then disable your brakes? So this is another level of trouble you will get out of this. Now, cloud computing. We all talk about public, private, or hybrid, or any types of cloud. Just go one step backwards and think, what is cloud? You had a data center in the past where your assets were there and your applications were running on your assets, which had a set of processes, meaning that whether people can be admitted, who can be allowed to use, and when people leave, they will be disabled, and you have the regular patching, regular upgrades, etc., etc. Now, the whole thing is now shipped to some cloud, which is somebody else's data center where you rent a small area. So who does these processes for you? Are these processes existing? So that becomes another avenue of a risk vector for you. Now, next one is mobile and BYOD. Mobile, everything we want to use mobile, and BYOD, every man and dog wants to bring his own devices because he feels very good in bringing his device because that's superior to what the company can offer. So the company is not able to lay its control on the devices through which its assets are operated. It becomes open. Big data I spoke about. Now, business models. The company is becoming an integrated beast. It has got supply chains, it has got consumers connected to your company. So there is a constant, the boundaries, as we know, has disappeared. So within the corporation itself, physically, you will find multiple sites, multiple entry points, various partners. So in an office, you don't only find your own people, you find so many other partners and collaborators working together. That's the nature of the business. So all of them open up new areas of threat for you from a cyberspace. So therefore, protecting yourself from cyber risk is paramount. We all talk that now we have to protect ourselves from cyber risk. Can we predict it? This is the key point of my whole presentation. My take is cyber risk can be predicted relatively easily. It only requires a little bit of a conscious looking around things. Let's go and see how it is done. What is a principle of predictions? Let's talk about it, which is whenever there is a facility, there is an exploit. Both of them co-evolve. Like predators and prey share the same ecosystem. For example, where there is a lion, there will be a deer. Where there is a deer, there will be some predator to kill it. Similarly, if you find in a social scenario, when there is a lot of crowd going on, say today is Dashera, you can find lots of puja pandals all over the place, people milling around. That's also the place where you will have pickpockets coming around. Okay. Therefore, are all risks identifiable? Almost all of them can be identified, or for the best part of it, most of them can be identified. There will be always a few outliers which we are not going to be able to figure out. So, in a traditional way, a weakness results in an exploit, and an exploit results in a crime, and crime leads to a crime cycle. The same phenomena applies even in your cyberspace. So, there are theories. What are the theories in predicting an event from happening based on what you currently see? Let's look at it. This is a Christmas orchid. This flower is native to Madagascar. Look at this long spur that comes up about 35 centimeters. So look at it and you tell me what your thoughts are. Okay? Now that have you written it down? Let's go to the next one. Darwin in 1862 predicted that there should be a moth with about 35 centimeters of proboscis. That's a long nose through which it's going to put its thing inside and drink the nectar in. At that time, nobody has discovered any moth with that type of a proboscis. When Darwin published it, everybody ridiculed him. 41 years later, the moth was sighted, and 140 years later, the moth was photographed. So how did Darwin predict the unseen, unheard moth? If a flower has got such a long tubular structure, there must be a moth with similar size of proboscis to pollinate it. Because moth and flower must be co-evolving. When the flower had a smaller tube, the moth should have had a smaller proboscis. As both of them symbiotically evolve. The same thing can be said for parasitic evolution also. So now you see how this will relate to your cybersecurity. Whenever you see a facility, you know that facility has got an equal and opposite exploit. That exploit has to be picked up and known. So it's relatively easy to predict, and it's all common sense and a bit of conscious observation of our surroundings. Let me ask you to predict some risks. I'll give you a couple of scenarios. You are going to predict risk for me, okay? This is the free Wi-Fi in shopping malls and public places. You go there and they say, oh, come to our place and here are your Wi-Fi things. Just connect and off you go. Okay. Or is it being done to provide you a convenience? Or is it being done to draw you into the mall so that you are happily shopping around? What's your answer? Okay. Answer is neither. This is a mechanism of harvesting your personal information. If you would have seen the small fine prints, the mall operators collect all information about you, your contacts, your phone patterns, the type of phone, where you're moving, what you're doing, virtually anything and everything. Basically, they're taking an electronic fingerprint of you on that premise and outside as well, which you don't want to think about. Simply push the button and say, yes, go into the Wi-Fi, look into your few things here and there and feel good about it. This is the consequence behind it. That needs to be understood and thought. So the next one, I'll give you this. You have Wi-Fi, that is, you have WhatsApp and you have got FB Messenger. So both of them allow you to make free phone calls, do everything. So what's the catch? Well, I can hear you saying that, yes, some privacy aspects. You're right, you're getting there. Look at it, what both of them are asking for. I want to get an access to your contacts and calendar, location, SMS, phone, uses of one or more of phone call, and then photos, media files, camera, microphone, Wi-Fi connection information. You name it, everything. Whatever you do with the phone is known to them, all for a free phone call you can make. This is, so now you understand, there is a facility, there is an exploit available in parallel with that. So this is a primary or a fundamental premise I want to leave it with you, so that this is how you are going to go predict your potential risks, potential problems in any of the new advancements in computing technology that comes and faces, that comes before you. Now we spoke of these things. No, the technology is doing that. What about people and process? People. With the technology available for an exploit, people become a little bit more a dangerous phenomena for you. Disengaged employees who hate the company, who doesn't want to go out, but at the same time hate the company. They are people who can start exploiting these weaknesses, or they could be exploited by other people to exploit the weakness to siphon out data. Disgruntled employee, partners and associates. And external threats are the hacktivists. See, you had activists taking placards and standing in various places. Now, that's a old technology. They can only go for a specific area, but now they can go globally, go across places by just catching up on the computer platform. So that becomes hacktivism. Assange was a great guy for this particular one. He took it to the heights. So social engineering. which is like basically con men. They come around, and that phishing is one form of social engineering. Your competitors go for an espionage, go for paid eliciting of data. The militant groups want to spread their message and their control, and so they use cyberspace. So people internally and externally become a threat because of the very nature of the technology that enables them to be a threat. Process. See, I'm just going to call it as a software is untested for security exposures. Today we test our software for functional compliance, ability to do the function within a given time and all your performance. But the same software is going to be exploited by people for defrauding the company, defrauding the bank, defrauding the telephone company. So the type of exposure there is not somebody to break, somebody to use it in a very abusive format. That type of testing, are we doing it? Inadequate access management. So when you have a software which says, this is a software anybody from anywhere in the world can use, all my customers can use, and all my call center people can use, think about it. Do you really need to do that type of a thing? Or you have to have some form of restriction that it comes only during business hours. This class of customers will come only from particular geography. Are you going to do that? Otherwise, what's the consequence? That's a facility. You have to think, but go back to the same example. Look at this as a facility, find out what it is. Unhardened and ad hoc processes. You have got so many processes that are there. This is how I'm going to do A, B, and C. Close your eyes and think about the company processes that exist that can be executed over a computer system. And see if the processes can be exploited. Has it been formally hardened? That means all the exploits are removed. Think about it. Whenever you see a facility, think of a risk. Inadequate user acceptance testing, that is security exploit testing, what we talked at the first one, security exposure. Okay, now once you do these things, now so far we have done what is a cybersecurity, how the risks of cybersecurity appear in this field, how do we protect ourselves from cybersecurity, especially by predicting, and how it is important for the company. We spoke up to this point. Now let us talk in the next level of how do we protect ourselves from a cyber risk. First is the prediction of the risk, which we have been talking, and I'll be emphasizing it going forward as well. Second, people and process becoming another channel of your risk, and then how do we want to safeguard them. Third is several proactive measures which we can take. Fourth is going to be knowledge as a tool, because knowledge is going to be the most important factor in combating this type of a risk. So proactive measures. What actually we mean by proactive measures? We have to think in terms of a risk and impact-based protection. You are protecting the whole corporation around the world seamlessly, fully, totally. That's almost impossible. It is like, think of India as a large country, and are you going to seal every inch of your border along the Himalayas? No, that is almost impossible. Borrow their technique. You go do on risk-based things. Certain areas are risky, so you soak them with your people. In some areas, you have an ability to detect something and then protect it. So in that context, we do risk-based and impact-based protection. The ideal way of protection is layered defense paradigms. You just don't rely on one layer of security, multiple layers. You have a firewall, then you have an intrusion detection system, then you have an access management system, and so on and so forth. If one fails, something else will catch. That's a layered defense paradigm. Detection and swift response is the order of the day. What happens is, if you think that you are never going to be attacked, please don't dream. The question is when you will be attacked. Because every one of us is going to be attacked one way or the other. The most important thing is how fast we realize that we have been attacked and how quickly we can repel the attack and mitigate the attack and minimize the damage coming out of it. So the detection and swift response is more important than total prevention. Third one you have to think on a proactive measures aspect is creating a corporate awareness. The corporate awareness is gone are the days when security was the responsibility of a few fellows sitting in the back room. Security is everybody's responsibility, starting from the board to the mailroom boy. Everybody is responsible. So in our case, it is going to be not only us, but also our partners and third parties who are engaging with us. So you equip them, you engage them, educate them, make them realize what their obligations are. So even if 80% of them are up to speed with you, then you have a well-defined, a good circle of people who is going to protect you. What we call in intelligence parlance as human intelligence is available for you. Engage your customers. They could be your vigilantes. See, all the phishing attacks, before you go find out, there will be one customer who gets the first one, who gets to see it, and he would be the first one to call you and tell. Engage them. Throw them small, give them small rewards, make them feel comfortable, make them engage them with you, take them along with you in the journey. The company is not only your property, it is also their property. So they will also join you in protecting. This is no different from how we protect countries. On the borders, it is not your border security force that is going to pick all the intelligence. It is the people, the citizens living in that area, tell the anomalies to the border security force, which in turn starts protecting. Same logic. So engage people. In proactive measures, in summary, all you can say is have a risk-based protection, detect and defend, and create an awareness both within the company and outside the company, because people are paramount in your protective measures. Then knowledge. You have a lot of knowledge in internet. I've given you a few of these things from CERT-In and US CERT are the places where you get brilliant amount of knowledge. If you go to Government of Australia publications, they are written in such a fashion that even our children can read and understand it very well. It's an excellent thing. Now, above all this knowledge, let me tell you one thing. The biggest knowledge lies with all of us. The thing is, we all know more than what we think we know. You got to realize you know it. The moment you realize it, then your eyes open and you are able to see things and detect yourself. So, build your knowledge as much as possible. Read from various places. Go once in a week. At least spend about 15-20 minutes browsing through these topics in these areas. So you will get some new tips, new ideas, new exposures that are happening. So that will give you ideas to think and be aware differently. Then the next one happens to be reputation and threat monitoring services. See, reputation and threat monitoring services are offered by every vendor. Almost all hardware and software vendors provide, and then there are aggregators who provide this service, which tells you such and such IP addresses have a very bad reputation. They may be fraudulent IP addresses. Oh, such a threat is happening in this part of the world that is shifting from this to this to this. Like a weather report follows, they will say this is moving, therefore you could be the next one coming up too. So these services are available very widely. The most important thing is you have to leverage them. I use the word leverage. I didn't use the word use. The information what is given is generic in context. You have to adapt it to your requirement and your context. That's where you go back to the original thing is predict what type of a risk can happen to you in your environment, and then apply this new knowledge of various threat and risk reputation protection and see how they could work together. Third leg of knowledge is coming out of collaboration. The collaboration, you can think of inter and intra-company collaboration, because you need an intra-company collaboration as much as inter-company collaboration. Within the company, within your development teams, within your testing teams, within your business teams, within your marketing teams, you need to work together so that you can identify risks as they emerge, or even educate them on what risks are. Therefore, you all become one big cohesive team. Intercompany collaboration of your own fraternity, if you go, what happens to one will happen to the other as well, so that both of you can share. Usually there are bodies and collaboration bodies exist, but all of them are very official. If they're official, which is what we call as a track one type of diplomacy, everything is very sanitized. The track two, which is an informal collaboration channels, is where you get lots of information exchange, and it is very effective. Try building relationship and friendliness with your colleagues in your own fraternity, so that you will be able to protect each other. Security is not a place for competition. It's a place for collaboration, because the other man is also going to be affected. So he is going to be sharing with you what is affected. Therefore, when something happens to you, you can share with him so that he can be ready. In my long life, there were several times my competitor used to call me and say that, hey Shiva, this is what is happening here. Do you get it? And then, oops, I've not gotten it. Let me go fix it. So, well, I'll be ready for that type of thing. I have also done it several times. So that's very important. Collaboration, that structured collaboration is very important. Last one is cross-application of knowledge. Knowledge for cybersecurity is highly interdisciplinary. What you get from one discipline, you will have to apply. I started off with applying from the evolution theory to cybersecurity. Think of it, any facility, anything. If you find that there is a conning that happens, if you find that there's a heist in bank that is happening in this particular format, think how that could happen in cyber world. So one knowledge from one domain applied to the other one is what is going to keep you one step ahead of your crooks. So now I'm going to go a few minutes in the type of offerings, product offerings typically comes from the market, and let me use what you get out of Airtel. I'm not going to sell this. If any questions on this product, my sales department will talk to you, not me. I'm a techie. So we provide some service called distributed denial of service. I explained to you what distributed denial of service. It's a simultaneous attack from multiple sources to make services unavailable. If it is on a personal level, they even use it for taking ransom from the company or from an individual. So what we do in those situations are scrubbing centers, which means take the traffic that is coming into your corporation, filter it, clean it off all those nefarious traffic, and you do it. That could be done in two ways. One, we can provision some services, some scrubbing capability within the corporation, which is called in-house, or keep it in the cloud, which is on demand. So typically, corporations have both things, some in-house and some on cloud, because by the time, if you have a proper DDoS management, what you have in-house, you'll be able to contain it without going to the cloud. But cloud is your insurance, because when it happens, you simply go to a capacity on demand and then start cleaning it. It is just not the technology that matters, it is the skills and competence to manage the DDoS and decide how this must be done, when it must be done, is a question which comes up along with experience. That is also offered as service. The next set of services is universal threat management services. I spoke to you about that risk, reputation and threat intelligence services. This is similar to that. This integrates multiple threat intelligence sources to give correlated actionable intelligence. It combines firewall, data loss prevention, antivirus gateways, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. It takes all of them and correlates and say, hey, based on this, this is the type of risk I see. So they use both cloud and captive models. They use the tool they are using is Fortinet, and so on and so forth. This one, the way you adapt it to your environment will be a good thing. So many corporations, including myself, we use these type of services, and we try to use them because an extra piece of information is very useful in defending yourself. We talked about the layered security offering. So multiple layers, multiple discrete layer security. Oh, I can have a web gateway to secure at the web level, or a mail gateway to secure at the mail level, or an SIEM, which is the security information and event management for correlating multiple information to provide me an alert when something happens, or advanced persistent threat. That's the latest buzzword that floats around, which is about the threats that are, or the malwares that get embedded into a system, which is evading any detection. And those malwares don't always exfiltrate data or just proliferate to create an havoc within the company, but they selectively exfiltrate data at random times so that it is below the radar for any corporation. So when you are attacked when you are suffering from an APT, you will not even know that exists. The way to find out is, when an exfiltration happens, it is more of an anomalous behavioral identification. So that's a complex area. That's where we normally take help from outside. So broadly, this concludes what I want to present to you about cybersecurity. Let me quickly summarize what I said so far. We started the conversation with what is cybersecurity. Then we explained how cybersecurity risks are distributed. Then we talked about how cybersecurity is important for corporations, why we must take serious interest on cybersecurity as an enterprise. Then we talked about the method of preventing ourselves from a cyber attack. One of them is to predict. Next one was to, or hardened, or people and process must be trained and tuned to protect you. And the third, we talked about proactive measures, and the fourth, we talked about knowledge as a tool. Then we talked about some of these market offerings that I explained, a few of them from our company. And at this point, I'm going to invite you to ask me any questions. So if I can answer them right away, I will do that right away. And thank you very much for listening to me.
I'll share the questions with you. Question there in the panel?
Where, sir?
Questions. These are the questions. How you can expand it?
So you can help me expand it, boss, please.
Click on it. So these are the questions which we.
Okay. I got a few questions here. Let me pick them. Does Airtel as an organization use security framework? Is our data safe with Airtel? Answer, this is a question from Chantal Saldana, and answer is yes. It uses the framework, and it is also compliant with ISO and certificate. It is ISO certified, and it follows all industry best practices. Then the second question, how important is it processes technical skills for cybersecurity management and training do you recommend? How important is it to possess technical skills for cybersecurity management, and what training you recommend? Shubhangi Walke. That's an excellent question, Shubhangi. The technical skills for cybersecurity, I personally feel in my whole life is developed on the job rather than going and taking a specific certification, specific training. That said, I always believe in people coming and working with me from a different discipline. I usually take people from an application background or a data background or a network background or an architecture background, and then after a year or two of working and understanding what they are supposed to deliver, I take them across for different courses. I get them a CISSP certification, I get them into ethical hacking, and I get them into other necessary and sufficient certifications tuned to their belief. But I don't normally like people who are coming up fresh from college with all the certification, because you have to understand the business a bit better before you go into certifications and training. That's my feeling, my way of thinking. I don't say that I'm the right person on that, but you asked my opinion, I've given you my opinion. Okay, the next question is from Avichal Singh. You mentioned in your PPT under big data point that investigation is a challenge. Kindly explain how. When somebody can fetch data without knowing us, then why technology can't trace them? Boy, somebody is looking at my presentation so carefully. So, who is that? Avichal Singh. Okay. So what is that? You mentioned in a PPT under big data point that investigation is a challenge. Explain how. When people are breaching a big data or a mega data warehouse and stealing things, the amount of volume of data available there and the amount of avenues that are available there makes it pretty wide open for an investigation. It's only a question of complexity of investigation in that area, because the surface area of your investigation is very high. That's what I meant by investigation is always a challenge. and trust that helps you. Otherwise, I'll have to come back to you on that. It's essentially the volume of that area, the surface area of that arena is what is going to create trouble for you. What else is the next question that is coming up? Any known vulnerability today is a potential threat tomorrow, can be predicted. How is it always plugged timely? Rajesh Pandita. It's a good question. If you start looking at it, okay, let me share some of my experiences, what I had in my previous life in Singtel Optus. I had a team which we as a team, we used to read various sources of information, and we were, every morning before we come and start our job, 15-20 minutes, we will share what we have picked up as a knowledge. And then say, that's going to happen. If this happens, somebody can escalate the privileges and do something, blah, blah, blah. Then we usually find in about a week's time, Microsoft will put up that particular one as a potential vulnerability. The moment you know that there is a potential exposure that can happen, and potentially that could be exploited, by the time an exploit is written, you know where you need to protect and against what type of attack you need to protect, and that type of a scenario-based protection is what you can go about building up within your own corporation. So that way you can start plugging in a timely fashion any defenses, even though they may not be the best defenses, but at least be ready to defend yourself. End of the day, you'll have to wait for a patch from Microsoft to do, but pending the patch comes, you would have taken compensating controls to protect yourself. Okay. Are our data privacy laws effective enough to protect from misuse at the organizations that collect them? Shivakumar TV. The data privacy laws are as effective as we find it anywhere in the world in this country. It is not the data privacy laws effectiveness that prevents or protects us from the misuse of the organization, but the crooks are far more smarter than us. Plus, we have an obligation to be a little bit more friendly to our customers as well. So it's a question of every day, every corporation is being attacked by these crooks, and a million attacks will happen. It only takes one victory for them to go croak in the market, and the company is muddied. But in reality, every day the company defends against hundreds and thousands of such attacks. But that's not a thing. Therefore, the laws are very effective, and companies are also becoming more and more effective in trying to contain these problems. Nowadays, the amount of exposures they are having is limited. Look at the time between the time the data gets lost and that they realize it and they take corrective actions. That window is shrinking. Okay. Let me see if there are any other questions. For a medium-sized organization, IT services across people, process, and technology, what areas you recommend we prioritize? Ronald Dissa. Sir, you have given the order yourself. I start with people, then I start with process, and technology is my last thing. Okay. Technology gives you a false sense of assurance that everything is going to be done. Technology is not as effective as it can be unless people are able to exploit it properly or use it properly, and processes are able to support it. So I always start with people, and with people, processes, and technology is the last thing. So far in my life, I have done that, and I have been reasonably successful. So, okay, then let us go through the next question. How to identify the extent of exposure for an organization and capabilities in India to identify such issues? How to identify the extent of exposure of an organization? Vijay Merotra. Mr. Merotra, I'm sorry, I'm unable to understand this question clearly, so if you could kindly restate your question, I'll be very happy to respond right now, or I'll take it offline and provide you the details. Apologies, I'm unable to comprehend this question. Next question. If just given a task to evaluate network security in a big setup, how and from where should I start to look into it? Should I do all the security measures that you mentioned are very important only? Secondly, it's a very intelligent question. I really like it. Secondly, how secured is our data in cloud? It is from Mr. B. Jayant. Okay, now let's talk about this one. If you're talking about network security or you're talking about data security, where do you start? Answer to most of the security issues is not as sexy as you expect it to be. Simple, elementary, hygienic issues like patch management goes a long way in protecting you. If you're talking about a network security or any such thing, take first thing of hardening your hardware and software before they go live. If you do that, 90% of your problem goes away. Okay. Understand the psyche of an attacker. An attacker is going to exploit which is vulnerable, which is easy for him to exploit. If he finds that it is reasonably hardened, he will go find the next target, not yours. Okay. Patching, hardening of both hardware and software before going live is a very good start point. And then once you have done this, you go up the food chain as to what else you need to do. That would be the good starting point for me. Second question of yours, Mr. Jayant, is how good is my data in cloud? The data in cloud depends upon what the controls and what the support the corporations which is hosting your data in the cloud is providing. It is not about their physical and their logical controls that matter. It is about how you manage the processes behind it. In systems at your in-house data center, you will have user ID management where fellows who left the company will be disabled immediately. You will check for any backend people who are able to access that one, any backdoors. Can you do the same thing there? If what you can do in your data center, you can try to do the same thing in your cloud, then the risk goes away. So you understand, you just go think about what you are doing in your data center and find out, oh, I am doing the following risk mitigation steps. Can I do the same thing over there? If something you can do the same thing over there, then you are happy. Otherwise, apply the risk management principle I always talk of as MEET. Mitigate, eliminate, accept, or transfer. So one of the four, either you mitigate it, or you eliminate it, or you transfer it through some contractual arrangements. So any one of them you can try doing it and keep moving. So trust I answered your question, Mr. Jayant. In mobile, cloud environment of client server, which is the weakest link in terms of vulnerability? Krishna Koneru. In mobile, cloud environment of client server, which is the weakest link? Krishna, I'm going to leave this as a exercise for your own self, and you find out, you put it up on a web in your blog spot, and I will come back and go through that. Because today I'm not going to answer that question right here. Apply the logic which I gave you in the first part of my presentation, which is how to predict. Use that logic, come to a conclusion, let's debate it afterwards. Due to threat exchange is limited in India. What is that? Where is it? Threat exchange is limited in India. Due to privacy concerns, people are not likely to exchange data. Can't that be solved? Sivakumar Datu Thadapalli. That is an excellent question, my friend. That is why I asked for track 2. If threat intelligence, see, every organism, every sector, like banking, telecommunication, have all got that threat intelligence and analysis center that has been set in under the auspices of CERT India. We all share our information within our fraternity, and all this information are anonymized, and then it is shared. But when we do this type of sharing, it's always like exactly what you said. It is limited, and privacy concerns preclude you from sharing the full data. That's why I said that track 2. Even in diplomacy, there is a track 2 diplomacy that goes on, where our officials, diplomatic officials, and our other countries' diplomatic officials have a conversation outside of any limelight. They talk, they both want a harmony, and they work towards that harmony. They both work towards it. Same phenomena is a track 2 diplomacy, is what I'm talking about. If you are a banker, go talk to all your banking friends. If you are a telephone company, I know every one of my colleagues in other big telephone companies, we talk to each other regularly. If a problem happens to me, it happens to me. If it happens to me, it will happen to him. So I will tell them, they will tell me. So this is how we solve this problem. Track 1, it has got its own limitations. Track 2, you are the boss there. Okay. Hope I've answered this question properly, Sivakumar. Due to what are your views on healthcare data security? See, why do you want to hold me accountable for one sector? Did I tell anything about this as a telecommunication security? No, I told it as a general cyber security. It is about business of any kind. So, please, this is generic. So, whatever I have said so far is applicable to healthcare also. In healthcare, the data becomes as important as anything else is, because there many of the data is privacy driven. Here also most of the data is economic driven, and therefore it is also coming under the ambit of privacy. So it's like, is the right hand more important or left hand more important? Therefore whatever I've said in this presentation is applicable across to all industries. Thanks, Ankur. What are your views on recently T-Mobile and Experian security breach? How can large organizations secure data? Sorry, this is too loaded a question for me to answer, and I'm not. Let me pass on that question. Okay. What the difference between event, security incident, data breach, and cyber security risk? Do they need different ways of mitigating it? Shubhangi Walke. Look, Shubhangi, I'm going to request you to go do your personal research and then send me an email. We will discuss on this, because it requires some amount of basic research, and then we can talk about this. Okay, thanks. You mentioned in your PPT, okay, that we have already covered. And is there anything else? Yeah. What are the latest technologies in the field of mobile security? In country where even the president gets threatening mails, how secure are internet facilities? Is there some agency acting as a regulatory body? What are the latest technologies? Okay. Yes, there are enough. Our CERT India is an excellent source which is doing that, which is acting as a regulatory body. Then there's a TRI, then there is banking regulators. There are enough regulatory bodies which are taking very serious care about our security and our personal well-being. Okay. Then you have asked me the technologies in the field of mobile security. The best technology in the field of mobile security is all that one which we already have. In my language, it is called common sense. Okay, that's why we are talking more and more of educating people, making them aware, so that they become responsible people using their mobile in a more safe way. Okay, that is what is going to solve all the problem. You have other technologies like mobile device management. There are multiple products available. They can provide you a little container into which all your official communications can be handled out of, and then it could be remotely wiped and so on and so forth. All of them are very interesting. But if your fundamental discipline in the way you use your mobile phone, the way you handle your sensitive passwords, or how diligent are you with in handling your mobile device, decides how effective it is going to be. Then, if you think of it, these mobile devices, most of them try to take your email details and all from webmails. Do you want to leave the webmail open for all people, or only for through MDM? That's another question you'll have to think about. So, if you look at a mobile platform, think about the risks that you are going to face on that platform, which is pertinent to your organization. Once you know that, find out how it could be mitigated, A, with people, B, with process, and finally, support people and process with any technology that you're going to get. Don't start the other way around. Okay. Hope I've answered your question, Mr. Gardeke. Any known, okay, we have already answered that. Okay. I think I have
A couple of other questions are shared in the last. The last one, yeah, the blue one.
okay. Okay, you mentioned you were time adopters. Do you find any major change in the approach to information security in India and overseas? Ronald, I don't find any major difference in the way we find information security in India and overseas, because both the sides, the professionals are as bright as we can get anywhere in the world. The entire information security as a discipline and the professionals who practice the discipline are as good as I can get anywhere in the world. So that part of it is fine. Plus, in India, people are far more cyber aware than what we can find in overseas. Including common man is able to understand in the street, they are able to talk about it. I've seen taxi drivers talking about cloud and private cloud and all. So that's the level of maturity that we have here that gives us an advantage. So I hardly find any difference. As a matter of fact, I find it more convenient to operate out of India. Okay. Okay, what is the difference? Okay, I think I've covered all the questions, my friend.
Yeah.
So gentlemen and ladies, I have thank you for giving me the opportunity to communicate with you. I have deliberately not answered a few questions because I want you to think, I want you to deliberately do some amount of research, reading, so that bridge building has to happen from your side. After that, you send the message to this webinar. You are doing a bit of a homework on this. Okay, I once again thank Economic Times and all of you to have participated actively with me in this particular exercise. It gives me immense pleasure to talk to you. Even though I'm not able to physically hear your voices, I'm able to feel it through your questions. Thank you, and you have a wonderful and a safe cyber journey in your life.